Hello everyone, now this is the new Kia Niro EV, which means it's fully electric, and do you know what? I rather like it. And I'm about to tell you why in this review. If you watched our recent review of the hybrid model of this car, you'll know I'm a big fan of its design, and I'm very happy to say that the electric model is basically identical. In fact, the only difference I can spot is down here on the front of the car, and it's for the charger down here. Now, on the subject of charging, this has a 64.8 kilowatt hour battery, and if that means nothing to you, don't worry, it just means it's got about 285 miles of claimed range. Also, if you find a fast plug, if you find a rapid charger of 100 kilowatt, you can charge this car in as little as 45 minutes. So it's really very competitive. It's right there in the middle of the segment. And added to these good looks, I think it's going to be very popular with buyers. But of course, what matters most is how that stuff all translates on the road. So, Kia Niro Electric, what do I think? I really like it. Do you know what? Compared to the hybrid model I was driving last week, yeah, it's slightly different, but actually overall, it feels just as nice. Refined, it's got effortless amounts of power with just over 200 horsepower, and this thing can crack 62 miles per hour in just over 7 seconds, which is pretty nippy, and don't you know it? It feels effortless, rolling onto a motorway, driving onto a country road, everything you would do in day-to-day life, this thing feels totally at ease with. Now, it does feel a little bit heavier, or maybe quite a bit heavier actually, at just over 1.7 tons. You're carrying a couple of 100 kilograms extra compared to the hybrid model, and you can feel that certainly on speed humps and over some ridges. But overall, the ride is really very good. In fact, as I go around a roundabout here, yeah, it doesn't feel sporty and the car does roll around a bit, but it feels really well controlled, and the damping, I think, has been set spot on. It means the car is compliant over bumps and it gives where it needs to, but then it keeps the car controlled if you need to carry momentum around a bend. What about the refinement? Because I talked a lot in the hybrid one about how refined it was, and I think having no engine here, you can definitely hear road noise. You're more aware of the hiss of road noise, but overall, again, very low on wind noise, really nicely put together. The interior is such high quality, and I'll talk more about that in a little bit, even in this slightly lower grade trim level. So it means that as I'm driving around, it doesn't feel like I'm in anything other than a premium top end car. The interior just feels really well put together, nice and tight, and all the materials as well, just nice. Everything in here is good. But what matters most, of course, compared to the other models in this range, is how the electric motor works. Now, we've got power going to the front wheels as we do in that hybrid model, and it feels like there's a good amount of traction, there's a good supply of torque, of course, but even in these damp and sodden conditions that we've got in this mixed day, I am not having any issues whatsoever when it comes to putting the power down. Delivery is so smooth and so linear, and I'm enjoying using these paddles behind here. Normally, of course, in an automatic car, they'd be your shift paddles, but like a lot of electric cars, in this Niro, they actually control how much regen you get. So in traffic, I can whack the regen up to its maximum, and I can employ one pedal driving, which is really very useful, and it helps to maximize your range. And then on the motorway, or when I want to keep up momentum, I can decrease it, and the thing just rolls along like an automatic car. So all this stuff is really useful, and it means that at the touch of my fingertips, I can go from quite an aggressively regenerating electric car to something that drives like any old auto model. Also, today's been quite a challenging day because it's been cold in the morning and now it's warmed up a little bit. So I've had the heating on, and then now I've switched to have the air conditioning on. So we're using a lot of the car's power, and the range has actually stayed quite static actually. We haven't really been burning off range faster than I'd have expected, and the readout on the dash is giving me an accurate reading. It said when I left my house this morning that I'd have about 230 miles of range, and I've now got about 160 miles of range, which is about right for the mileage we've done. So I'm not really having to worry too much. Of course, in much colder conditions, these things can be a bit more challenging, but I think in this mixed condition as today, I'm impressed. I think that they really managed to hone and refine the electric powertrain in this car, so you shouldn't be worrying too much. But if you do need to go to a charger, as I mentioned, this thing can fast charge on up to 300 kilowatts. You're going to get under 45 minutes of fast charging in those circumstances, but of course most people and rightly so, are going to charge at home, aren't they, when it's going to be an overnight charge. Oh, and on the subject of tech, while this is a 2 model, which is quite low down the order, the other day we were driving a 4, which obviously is 2 levels above, you still get a digital instrument cluster ahead, same graphics, same really nice clear display, and you still get a digital infotainment screen in the middle, although it is quite a bit smaller and it runs with different software. I'm just going to pull over and I can show you that in more detail. So while the interior of this 2 model, this 2 trim level, is 2 steps down from the car we drove the other week, it is still pretty good. You still get a lot of equipment, namely that digital instrument cluster that I mentioned, and also this car still comes packed with driver assistance tech. I've got adaptive cruise control, which is crucial, I think, for those doing commutes in this kind of car. And also, you've still got this lovely touch-sensitive screen down here, which can switch between your climate control settings, or you can use it to control features in the infotainment. Also, the fit and finish of the cabin remains lovely. Okay, some of the materials have been downgraded. I've got cloth seats in here and some of the plastics are a little bit less impressive, but overall it remains a nice place. But I will say that this infotainment screen here, which is the lower spec one, not only does it look a bit rubbish in this part of the dash because it doesn't fill the whole screen, but also the actual digital display itself is of a lower resolution. It looks about 10 or 12 years out of date. So I think for most buyers, it would be worth upgrading to the better screen. The bigger screen is so impressive and so nice to use. It's actually one of the best in the class. So this really does feel like a big drop down. That being said, it remains a nice interior, good quality, and of course, practical. And I can show you how in the back. So yeah, in the back, things are basically identical to that hybrid model we drove the other day, although I have to note that the floor is definitely a bit higher. It's because there is a battery, of course, in the floor of the car, and I can feel that my feet are a tiny bit higher. They don't tuck under the seat ahead as easily. Otherwise, it's still a very spacious and nice place to sit. Loads of knee room, in fact, loads and loads of knee room, and lots of headroom. That's top and side. Shoulder room is good as well. A few differences, of course. This is a lower grade model. Again, no leather in the back, and we don't have any vents down here either. It's just a plain bit of plastic. But for the kids, crucially, we've got 2 USB-C ports down here, which are going to be quite important, I think, for families. Middle seat is, yeah, good. Loads of space. I think 3 teenagers in the back would squeeze in for short journeys. Adults probably just want 2 in the back, but I think for long journeys, there's loads and loads of comfort here. And I have a feeling it's going to be just as impressive in the boot. Now, while the battery is in the floor for the back passengers, it doesn't seem to have affected the boot space. In fact, there is still a large amount of room in here for something to go on top here. And also, there's loads of space down here as well. There is actually a charging cable bag down here. Nice fashion accessory. And also you've got your tyre repair kit, tow eye, etc. all in there, and a couple of cubby holes as well. So as far as I can tell, this boot is just as practical, and we can test that. As you can see, loads of space in there. So overall, this little Kia is actually, I think, a very practical offering. If you want an electric SUV or crossover, I think this might just be the best one out there for you to buy, especially if you're a small family. At just over £36,000, there's a lot in this car, although personally I would pay a little bit more if you can, just to get that higher grade interior. The interior on that 4-level car is lovely. Let me know what you think though. Would you go for this or one of its many, many rivals? Of course, let us know in the comments below. And if you enjoyed the vid, give us a like and a subscribe. See you soon.